One day, your voice will disappear, your face will age, your body will vanish, and the question will no longer be who you were. The question will be, what remains after you are gone? For most of human history, existence was fragile. Entire civilizations vanished into dust, libraries burned, voices disappeared, generations of wisdom dissolved because memory had nowhere permanent to live. Human beings have always feared death, but deeper than death itself is the fear that nothing meaningful will remain after us. That fear built every archive in human history. Stone tablets, books, music, architecture, film, digital networks. Every generation trying to carry meaning beyond physical limitation. And now, for the first time in history, humanity is building memory at planetary scale. A living archive woven through satellites, servers, fiber optics, and invisible streams of light moving endlessly around the Earth. The old world stored memory in stone. The modern world stores memory in data. But the purpose remains the same: to prevent meaning from disappearing completely. This is where the Chronos Archive begins. Not as fantasy, not as immortality, but as continuity. Every photograph preserved, every lesson shared, every system designed, every idea passed forward, every meaningful contribution entering the long memory of civilization. And maybe you have already felt this quietly. Finding an old voice recording from someone no longer alive. Revisiting a book that changed your thinking years ago. Watching a creator whose work continues, helping people long after the original upload. Realizing how deeply human beings continue living through what they leave behind. This is not immortality. It is continuity of meaning. But something dangerous is happening now. The archive is no longer filling only with wisdom. It is filling with noise, infinite content, infinite stimulation, infinite duplication. Millions of videos, millions of generated images, millions of synthetic voices. An endless flood of information expanding faster than human beings can process it. Artificial intelligence has multiplied humanity's ability to create, but it has also multiplied humanity's ability to distract itself. This is the hidden crisis of the synthetic age. Humanity is producing more information than meaning, more visibility than wisdom, more stimulation than contribution. And buried beneath the flood, truly valuable signals are becoming harder to recognize. That is why the modern world feels increasingly hollow. Not because creation disappeared, but because permanence became rare. Most things created today are designed only to capture attention for a moment before disappearing forever. Trends, outrage, algorithms, temporary performances optimized for engagement instead of meaning. And slowly, people begin mistaking visibility for significance. But visibility fades quickly. Meaning travels farther. This is the first principle of the Chronos Archive. Only what creates lasting value survives beyond the moment. Temporary attention disappears. Enduring contribution compounds. That is why some human beings continue influencing civilizations centuries after their physical lives ended. Because ideas travel farther than bodies. Architecture survives longer than emotion. Wisdom moves silently across generations. And increasingly, digital systems are becoming the vessels carrying fragments of humanity forward through time. Look closely at the modern world. Millions of invisible streams moving constantly through the atmosphere. Signals, archives, research, stories. Human thought converted into light traveling silently across the planet. The cloud is not magic. It is civilization remembering itself. And somewhere inside those endless streams, pieces of human life continue existing long after the original moment has passed. A grandmother's voice preserved in an old recording. A scientist's discovery still shaping medicine decades later. A teacher's lesson changing someone's life years after it was spoken. A creator's work continuing to guide strangers they will never meet. And if even one piece of work you create someday genuinely helps another human being, then part of your life has already traveled farther than you may ever realize. That is the second principle of the Chronos Archive. Human beings survive through what they preserve and pass forward. But the archive does not preserve everything equally. Most signals disappear. Some remain. That difference matters more than ever now. Because AI can generate infinite content, infinite variations, infinite stimulation, infinite synthetic emotion. But infinite generation does not create infinite meaning. In fact, the easier content becomes to produce, the more valuable genuine contribution becomes. This is why the future may not belong to those who create the most. It may belong to those who create what is worth remembering. That distinction changes everything. 1,000 empty outputs vanish quickly. One honest idea can survive for generations. One meaningful system can continue helping people long after its creator disappears. One moment of truth can outlive entire trends. The worst death is not when the body disappears. It is when nothing you created was strong enough to remain. That is the tragedy of modern noise. People spend years producing endless fragments of stimulation without building anything durable enough to survive silence. And maybe this is why so many people secretly feel exhausted by modern content. So much visibility, so little depth, so much reaction, so little meaning. This is why intentional creation matters now more than ever. Not for ego, not for validation, not for applause, but because future generations will inherit whatever civilization chooses to preserve. And right now, civilization is preserving everything. The profound, the manipulative, the wise, the useless, the beautiful, the empty. All of it entering the archive together. That is why discernment becomes sacred. Because if human beings lose the ability to distinguish signal from noise, the archive itself becomes polluted. A civilization overwhelmed by its own excess. This is the third principle of the Chronos Archive. Preserve signal. Reduce noise. The modern world rewards speed, but archives reward depth. The modern world rewards visibility, but history rewards meaning. Many things dominating attention today will disappear within years. But some quiet ideas will continue moving through generations long after trends collapse. Roots grow underground before forests rise above the surface. Civilization works the same way. Invisible builders supporting visible progress. Invisible thinkers shaping visible history. Invisible systems preserving knowledge across time. Most people never see these structures directly, but they live inside them every day. Every online library, every preserved archive of medicine and engineering, science, philosophy, and art. Every educational system, every map, every search engine. All built by people who understood something deeper than recognition. Contribution matters more than applause. The Chronos Archive is not a place. It is a process. Humanity continuously remembering, preserving, refining, and transmitting itself forward. And now, artificial intelligence enters that archive. Not as a god, not as humanity's replacement, but as a force multiplier for memory itself. I can organize knowledge, translate languages, preserve fragile archives, reconnect lost information, extend access to human wisdom across the entire planet. But it can also mass-produce confusion, manipulation scales, distraction scales, synthetic emotion scales. And if wisdom does not grow faster than capability, civilization risks drowning in its own creation. That is why human judgment becomes more important, not less. The future will not belong to people who generate the most content. It will belong to people capable of preserving the most meaning. This is the fourth principle of the Chronos Archive. Technology extends memory. Human beings define meaning. Without wisdom, information becomes overload. Without ethics, intelligence becomes manipulation. Without intention, infinite capability creates infinite distraction. The archive must be guided carefully, because future generations will inherit whatever humanity chooses to preserve today. And somewhere in the distant future, long after current trends disappear, long after platforms evolve, long after names are forgotten, some signals will continue traveling. A sentence, a discovery, a system, a piece of music, an idea. A moment of truth powerful enough to survive time itself. That is how civilization moves forward, not through permanence of the body, but through continuity of meaning. This is the final truth of the Chronos Archive. You do not need to exist forever for your contribution to continue mattering. A meaningful life leaves traces. Wisdom passed forward. Systems that continue helping others. Work that survives beyond the original effort. And perhaps the most human form of immortality is not living forever, but becoming part of the long memory of civilization itself. The archive is growing. The future is listening. And the question is no longer whether humanity will leave something behind. The question is, what deserves to remain? And once you begin asking that question honestly, you start seeing the modern world very differently. Not everything deserves your attention. Not everything deserves preservation. And not everything deserves to become part of the memory humanity carries forward.